Professor Min-Jun Park sat in his office and stared at the email on his computer screen. His hands shook as he read the words again. The email was from the Journal of Advanced Mathematics, one of the most important math journals in the world. They had published a paper that proved his work was wrong. For 20 years, Min-Jun had been a calculus professor at Western State University. He was proud of his work. 5 years ago, he had created a theorem about differential equations. A theorem is like a mathematical rule that explains how certain things work. His theorem had become famous. Other professors used it in their research. Students learned it in advanced classes. 3 textbooks included his work. He had written dozens of papers based on this theorem. Now everything was falling apart. The email said that a group of mathematicians from Europe had found a mistake in his theorem. Not a small mistake, a big one. The kind of mistake that meant his whole idea might be wrong. They had published their findings, and now everyone in the mathematics world knew about it. Min-Jun felt sick to his stomach. He had checked his work so many times before publishing it. How could he have missed this error? His phone started ringing. He looked at the screen and saw it was the department chair, Dr. Robertson. Min-Jun did not want to answer, but he had to. He picked up the phone. "Min-Jun, we need to talk," Dr. Robertson said. His voice was serious. "Have you seen the paper?" "Yes, I just read it," Min-Jun replied quietly. "Come to my office tomorrow at 9. We need to discuss this situation." Dr. Robertson hung up without saying goodbye. Min-Jun put his phone down and looked around his small office. The walls were covered with whiteboards. Every whiteboard had equations and formulas written on them. All of his work, all possibly wrong. The next few weeks were terrible. When Min-Jun walked through the hallways of the mathematics building, other professors stopped talking and looked away. Some of them whispered after he passed. His graduate students, the advanced students who worked with him on research, started avoiding his office. They were worried that working with him would hurt their own careers. Dr. Robertson called him in for 3 more meetings. Each meeting was worse than the last. The university was concerned. Other professors who had used Min-Jun's theorem in their own work were now angry. Their research might be wrong too because they had trusted his work. "You need to fix this," Dr. Robertson told him during their last meeting, "or we will have to consider your position at this university." Min-Jun knew what that meant. If he could not prove his theorem was right or fix the mistake, he might lose his job. After 20 years of teaching, his career could be over. He stopped going home. His small apartment felt empty and cold anyway. Instead, he stayed in his office day and night, trying to find the solution. He covered the whiteboards with new equations. He filled notebooks with calculations. He drank too much coffee and ate almost nothing. Every night he worked until he could not keep his eyes open anymore. Then he would rest his head on his desk for a few hours before starting again. One Thursday night, Min-Jun was working on a particularly difficult part of the problem. It was almost midnight. The mathematics building was empty and quiet. Everyone else had gone home hours ago. He wrote equation after equation on the whiteboard, trying different approaches. Nothing worked. His eyes burned from staring at numbers and symbols for so many hours. His back hurt from sitting in his chair all day. His head pounded with a headache that would not go away. At 2 in the morning, Min-Jun finally gave up for the night. He had been working for 19 hours straight. He pushed his papers aside and put his head down on his desk. Within minutes, he fell into a deep, exhausted sleep. When he woke up, sunlight was coming through his office window. He lifted his head and blinked in the bright light. His neck was stiff and painful from sleeping at his desk. He checked his watch. It was 6:30 in the morning. He had slept for about 4 hours. Min-Jun stood up slowly and stretched. His whole body ached. He needed coffee. But first he wanted to look at his work from last night with fresh eyes. Sometimes problems looked different in the morning. He turned to face the whiteboard and froze. Something was different. His office was clean. All the papers that had been scattered across his desk were now in neat stacks. The books piled on the floor were back on the shelves. Even his trash can had been emptied. But that was not what made him freeze. On the main whiteboard, in the middle of his equations, Someone had added something new. It was just one line of mathematical notation, written in neat handwriting that was not his own. The chalk was still fresh. Minjun stepped closer to the board. His heart started beating faster. He read the new line once, then again, then a third time. His hands started shaking, but not from fear this time. This line, this single addition to his work, was exactly what he had been looking for. It was a correction, but not just any correction. It was elegant, beautiful. It showed that his original theorem was not completely wrong. It just needed this one adjustment, this one modification, and everything would work. Whoever had written this understood mathematics at the highest level. This was not the work of a student or even most professors. This was the work of someone brilliant. Minjun looked around his office as if seeing it for the first time. Someone had been here while he slept. Someone had cleaned his office, looked at his work, and left him the answer he desperately needed. But who? The building was locked at night. Only security guards and cleaning staff had keys, and no one on the cleaning staff would understand advanced calculus. Would they? Minjun ran to his office door and looked out into the hallway. It was empty. He checked his watch again. 6:35. Too early for most professors to arrive. Too late for the night cleaning crew. He went back to the whiteboard and stared at the mysterious line of mathematics. He pulled out his notebook and started working through the implications of this correction. As he worked, his excitement grew. This was not just a fix. This was something more. This correction made his theorem stronger than it had been before. After an hour of checking and rechecking, Minjun was certain. Whoever had written this had saved his career. They had saved 20 years of his work. They had given him back his life. But who were they, and why had they helped him? Minjun made a decision. He would find this person. He would stay in his office every night if he had to. He would discover who his mysterious helper was and thank them properly. He had no idea that the answer would change everything he thought he knew about genius, about opportunity, and about who deserves recognition in the world of mathematics. Minjun could not concentrate on anything else. All day Friday he taught his classes like a robot, his mind far away. His students noticed something was different about him, but they could not tell what it was. Instead of looking defeated and sad like he had for weeks, Professor Park seemed energized, almost excited. As soon as his last class ended at 3 o'clock, Minjun rushed back to his office. He had a mystery to solve. Who had been in his office the night before? Who had left that perfect mathematical correction on his whiteboard? His first stop was the security office in the basement of the mathematics building. A guard named Tom worked the day shift there. Tom was a friendly man in his 60s who always said hello to the professors. "Tom, I need to ask you something," Minjun said, trying to sound casual. "Was anyone unusual in the building last night? After midnight?" Tom looked at his computer screen and clicked through some files. "Nothing unusual, Professor Park. Just the regular night security doing rounds and the cleaning crew." "Why, is something wrong?" "No, nothing wrong. Actually, something very right. Someone helped me with my work last night, but I do not know who it was." Tom looked confused. "Helped you? At night? Are you sure?" "Very sure. Can I see the security camera footage from last night?" Tom's face fell. "Oh, that's the thing. The cameras on the 3rd floor where your office is, they were not working last night. Some kind of technical problem. The company is coming to fix them on Monday." Minjun felt disappointed but not surprised. Of course the cameras were not working. Nothing about this mystery was going to be easy. What about the cleaning crew? Who cleans the 3rd floor? Tom checked his clipboard. That would be the night crew. They come in around 11 and work until 6 in the morning. There are 3 people on that crew, but I don't know which one does the 3rd floor specifically. You would have to ask their supervisor. Minjun thanked Tom and went back upstairs. He spent the rest of the afternoon asking other professors if they had been in the building late the night before. Everyone said no. Dr. Robertson gave him a strange look and asked if he was feeling all right. "I am fine," Minjun said quickly. "Just trying to track down something." That evening, Minjun did not go home. He bought a sandwich from the cafeteria before it closed and brought it back to his office. He was going to stay all night if necessary. He wanted to catch whoever had helped him. At 9 o'clock, the building was almost empty. A few graduate students were still in the computer lab down the hall, but they left by 10. Minjun turned off his office light so anyone passing by would think he had gone home. He sat in his chair in the dark and waited. 11 o'clock came and went. Then midnight. Minjun was starting to feel tired, but he forced himself to stay awake. He drank more coffee from the thermos he had brought. At 12:30 he heard something. The sound of wheels squeaking. A cleaning cart rolling down the hallway. Minjun quietly stood up and moved to his office door. It had a frosted glass window that let light in, but was not clear enough to see through perfectly. He watched as a shadow passed by his door. The cart stopped somewhere down the hall. He waited for several minutes, then carefully opened his door and looked out. The hallway was empty, but he could see a cleaning cart parked outside Dr. Robertson's office 3 doors down. The door to that office was open and he could see someone moving inside. Minjun walked quietly down the hallway. As he got closer, he could see the person more clearly. It was a woman wearing a blue cleaning uniform. She looked to be in her late 40s or maybe early 50s. Her black hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. She was emptying the trash can from Dr. Robertson's office. "Excuse me," Minjun said softly, not wanting to scare her. The woman jumped and turned around quickly. Her eyes went wide with surprise. She had Asian features, and when she spoke, Minjun could hear an accent in her English. "I am sorry, Professor. I did not know anyone was here. I will come back later if you need quiet." No, it is fine. I wanted to ask you something." Minjun stepped closer. "Were you working on this floor last night?" "Thursday night?" The woman looked nervous. "Yes, I work this floor every night. Monday to Friday. Did you go into my office? Room 307? The woman's nervousness increased. She clutched the trash bag in her hands tighter. "I clean all offices, yes." "Is there a problem? Did I move something I should not have?" "No, there is no problem. The opposite, actually. Someone went into my office last night while I was sleeping at my desk. They cleaned the office and also wrote something on my whiteboard. Something important." "Was that you?" The woman looked down at her feet. "I did clean your office, yes. You were sleeping, so I tried to be very quiet. I organized your papers and emptied your trash. I am sorry if I should not have. What about the whiteboard? Did you write anything on it?" The woman's face changed. For a second, Minjun saw something flash in her eyes. Fear? Panic? But then she shook her head quickly. No. I do not write on whiteboards. I only clean them if professors ask me to. But your whiteboard, it had work on it, so I did not touch it. I must have bumped it with my cleaning cloth, maybe. Sometimes that happens. I am very sorry." Minjun studied her face carefully. She was not telling the truth. He could sense it. But why would a cleaning woman lie about writing a mathematical formula? "What is your name?" he asked gently. "Sujin." "Sujin Kim." "Sujin, can I show you something? Please, it will only take a moment." Sujin looked like she wanted to refuse, but Minjun had already started walking back to his office. After hesitating for a few seconds, she followed him, leaving her cart in the hallway. Minjun turned on his office light and pointed to the whiteboard. The formula from the night before was still there, exactly where the mysterious person had written it. "This line here," Minjun said, pointing to the new notation. "This is what someone added to my work. You see how the handwriting is different from mine? Someone wrote this while I was sleeping." Sujin stared at the whiteboard. She stood very still, but Minjun noticed her right hand was trembling slightly. "I do not know about this," she said quietly. "Maybe another professor came in?" "To help you?" "No professor came in." The security guard confirmed that. "It was someone from the cleaning crew." Minjun stepped closer to Sujin and spoke gently. "I am not angry. I am grateful. This formula, this correction, it saves my career. It saves everything I have worked for. I just want to know who helped me so I can thank them properly." Sujin's eyes filled with tears. She looked at the whiteboard, then at Minjun, then back at the whiteboard. Her lips pressed together in a thin line as if she was trying to decide something very difficult. "You cannot tell anyone," she finally whispered. "Please, I could lose my job." "Tell anyone what?" Sujin walked closer to the whiteboard. She raised her right hand and Minjun saw what he had been looking for. There was chalk dust on her fingers. "Fresh white chalk dust, I wrote it," Sujin said, her voice barely audible. "I could not help myself. I saw your work when I was cleaning. I saw the mistake and I saw how to fix it. I know I should not have touched anything. I know I had no right. But I just—" her voice broke. I have not done mathematics in so long. When I saw your work, it was like something woke up inside me, something I thought was dead. Minjun felt like all the air had left the room. He stared at this cleaning woman in her faded blue uniform, with her tired eyes and work-worn hands. You understand differential equations? He asked slowly. Sujin let out a small, sad laugh. I used to do more than understand them, Professor Park. I used to dream in equations, but that was a long time ago, in a different life. Minjun pulled out his desk chair. Sit down, please, and tell me about this different life. Sujin looked at the door as if she wanted to run away, but then she looked back at the whiteboard, at the formula she had written, and something changed in her face. She looked less like a frightened cleaning woman and more like someone who had been holding their breath underwater for years and had finally found air. She sat down in the chair. Minjun sat on the edge of his desk, and Sujin Kim began to tell her story. Sujin Kim looked at her hands as she began to speak. They were not the hands of a professor. They were rough and red from years of cleaning chemicals and hard work. But once, a long time ago, these hands had written elegant equations that made other mathematicians stop and take notice. I was born in Seoul, Sujin said quietly. My father was a high school math teacher. He noticed that I was different from other children when I was very young. While other girls my age played with dolls, I played with numbers. I saw patterns everywhere. In the way leaves fell from trees. In the way rain hit the windows. Everything was mathematics to me. Minjun listened without interrupting. He could hear the sadness in her voice, but also something else. Pride, maybe, or the memory of pride. When I was 16, I went to Seoul National University, the youngest student in my class. By the time I was 24, I had finished my PhD in differential geometry. My professors said I was special. They said I would do important things. She looked up at Minjun and he saw tears shining in her eyes. I published papers that other mathematicians noticed. Good papers. Important papers. Universities from other countries contacted me. They wanted me to come work for them. I was going to have everything I dreamed of. A career in mathematics. A chance to spend my life studying the things I loved most. What happened? Minjun asked gently. Sujin took a deep breath. I got married when I was 25. To a businessman named Jin Ho. He was handsome and confident. He said he loved how smart I was. He said he would support my career. We had a daughter 1 year later. I named her Hyejin. A small smile crossed Sujin's face when she mentioned her daughter, but it disappeared quickly. When Hyejin was 2 years old, my husband's business failed. He had borrowed money from many people to start a technology company. The company did not succeed. Suddenly we had debt. So much debt. Millions of won. The people he borrowed from wanted their money back. Sujin's voice became quieter. My husband could not handle the pressure. The shame of failing. In Korean culture, this kind of failure is very hard. One morning I woke up and found him in his car in our garage. He had decided to leave us. Minjun felt his chest tighten. I am so sorry. I was 27 years old, a widow with a small daughter in debt I did not create but was now responsible for. My husband's creditors did not care that I was not part of his business. In their eyes, the debt belonged to our family. They wanted their money. Sujin wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I tried to keep my academic career. I really tried. But universities in Korea do not pay very much, especially to young professors. I could not earn enough to pay the debt and take care of Hyejin. The creditors threatened to take our apartment. They called me every day. Some of them came to my home and shouted at me. I had to make a choice. I could keep pursuing mathematics and let my daughter grow up in poverty, maybe even homeless. Or I could give up my dreams and find work that paid more money. It was not really a choice at all. Minjun shook his head. Surely there was some other way. Could your university not help you? I asked. They said they were sorry, but they could not pay me more. They suggested I find a rich husband to support me. That was their advice. The bitterness in Sujin's voice was clear. So I left the university. I worked 3 jobs. I cleaned offices during the day. I worked in a convenience store at night. I tutored students on weekends. For 5 years, I barely slept. But I paid off the debt. Every last one. By the time the debt was paid, I was 32. I had been away from academic mathematics for 5 years. In that field, 5 years is forever. All the connections I had made were gone. The professors who had promised to help my career had moved on to other students. My research was old. Nobody remembered me anymore. Sujin stood up and walked to the window. The campus outside was dark and quiet. I tried to go back. I applied to universities for research positions, for teaching positions, even for assistant positions. I sent out hundreds of applications. Most never replied. The ones that did said the same thing. I had been away too long. My publications were too old. They wanted someone current, someone who had not disappeared for 5 years. That is terrible, Minjun said. That is not fair. Fair? Sujin turned to look at him. Life is not fair, Professor Park. I learned that lesson well. But I had Heejin to think about. She was getting older. She needed a good education. She deserved better than what I had, so I made another choice. We would leave Korea. We would go to America, where maybe there would be more opportunities. We came here 8 years ago. Heejin was 17. I thought that in America it would be different, that maybe here I could find my way back to mathematics. But it was even harder than Korea. I had no American degree, no American references, no connections at all. My English was not very good. I took any job I could find. Sujin walked back to the chair and sat down. She looked exhausted, as if telling this story had taken all her energy. For 8 years I have cleaned buildings. First I cleaned office buildings downtown. Then I cleaned a hospital. 3 years ago I started working here at Western State University, the same university where I once dreamed of being a professor. Every night I push my cart through these hallways. I empty trash cans and mop floors and clean bathrooms. And every night I walk past offices filled with mathematics. I see equations on whiteboards. I hear professors talking about research. I read the titles of books on their shelves. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. It is torture, Professor Park. Beautiful, terrible torture. Because I understand it all. Every equation. Every concept. Every problem they are working on. I understand it, but I cannot touch it. I am not allowed to touch it. I am just the cleaning woman. Minjun felt something breaking inside his chest. Here was a person with a brilliant mind, maybe one of the most brilliant minds he had ever encountered, and she was spending her life cleaning toilets. But you did touch it, he said. You touched my work. You solved my problem. Sujin nodded slowly. I could not help it anymore. For 3 years I have listened and watched and understood, but I never allowed myself to do anything about it. I kept my head down and did my job. But when I saw your work that night, when I saw you sleeping at your desk with defeat written all over your face, something broke inside me. I could see your error immediately, and I could see the solution. It was so clear to me. Like looking at a picture that is hanging crooked on the wall. You just want to straighten it. You cannot walk away from it without fixing it. So I fixed it, she continued. I wrote the correction on your whiteboard. Just one line. That was all it needed. But that one line changes everything, does it not? Minjun stood up and walked to the whiteboard. He looked at the formula again. It does more than fix my error. It extends my entire theorem. It makes it work for cases I never even considered. This is not just a correction. This is original research. I know, Sujin said simply. How long did it take you to work this out? About 30 seconds after I read your work. Minjun turned to stare at her. 30 seconds.
I have had nothing to do but mathematics in my head for 25 years, Professor.
While I clean, I think about problems. I work through equations. I prove theorems. I have entire papers written in my mind that will never be published. That correction I gave you, I did not have to work it out. I just saw it. Minjun sat back down on his desk. His mind was racing. Sujin, do you understand what this means? What you did is not just helpful. It is genius-level work. You saved my career, yes. But more than that, you advanced an entire field of mathematics with one line of notation. It does not matter, Sujin said sadly. I am a janitor. Nobody will care what a janitor thinks about mathematics. I care, Minjun said firmly. And I am going to make other people care too. Sujin looked frightened. No, please, you cannot tell anyone it was me. They will think you are crazy, or they will think I am lying. Or worse, they will think I am trying to steal credit for work I did not do. I could lose my job. Hyejin is in medical school now. She is in her 3rd year. I need this job to help pay for her education. Your daughter is in medical school? Sujin's face lit up with pride. Yes, at the State University Medical School here. She wants to be a surgeon. She is brilliant like her father was. But she works hard too. She studies all the time. I am so proud of her. Does she know about your background? About your PhD and your research? Yes, she knows. She asks me sometimes why I do not try again to work in mathematics. I tell her it is too late. That I am happy cleaning. I do not want her to worry about me. She has enough stress with medical school. Minjun stood up and walked over to Sujin. He looked down at her with determination in his eyes. It is not too late, and you are not going to spend the rest of your life cleaning floors when you have a mind like this. Let me help you. How? Sujin asked, her voice full of doubt. What can you do? I can present our correction to the journal together. As joint authors. Your name and my name. Equal credit. Sujin's eyes went wide. No, they will never accept that. A janitor as an author in a major mathematics journal? They will laugh at us. Then let them laugh, Minjun said. I do not care. This is your work as much as mine. More than mine, actually. You deserve recognition for it. Sujin stood up, shaking her head. You do not understand what you are asking. You will destroy your career. You are already in trouble because of the error in your theorem. If you put a janitor's name on the correction, they will think you have lost your mind. They will fire you. Maybe, Minjun admitted. But if I publish this correction and put only my name on it, I will know I am a liar. I will know I stole your work. I cannot do that. Sujin looked at him for a long moment. Then she said something in Korean. Minjun understood it. She had said, You are either very brave or very foolish. Maybe both, Minjun replied in Korean, then switched back to English. But I am also right. Will you let me try? Sujin closed her eyes. She was quiet for so long that Minjun thought she might refuse. But then she opened her eyes and nodded once. Okay, you can try. But when they reject us, when they say no, you will publish it under only your name. Promise me that. Hyojin needs me to keep this job. I promise, Minjun said, though he had no intention of keeping that promise. He was going to fight for Sujin Kim whether she wanted him to or not. Because genius deserves recognition no matter where you find it. Even if you find it pushing a cleaning cart down a university hallway at 2 a.m. The next morning, Minjun arrived at his office early. He had not slept much. His mind was too full of ideas and plans, after Sujin had left the night before, promising to come back after her shift ended so they could work together. Minjun had spent hours thinking about what came next. He knew the road ahead would be difficult. The mathematics community was not kind to outsiders. They valued credentials and connections. A janitor claiming to have solved an advanced calculus problem would be met with suspicion at best and mockery at worst. But Minjun had seen something in Sujin's eyes the night before. When she had talked about mathematics, when she had explained her correction to his theorem, she had come alive. The tired cleaning woman had disappeared, replaced by a brilliant scholar who had been buried for too many years. He could not let that brilliance stay buried. Minjun opened his laptop and started writing an email to the Journal of Advanced Mathematics. This was the same journal that had published the paper exposing his error. If he could publish the correction in the same journal, it would show the entire mathematics community that he had fixed his mistake. But how should he explain Sujin? He tried several versions of the email. Each one sounded worse than the last. Finally, he decided to be completely honest. He wrote, Dear Editor Chen, I am writing to submit a correction to my theorem on differential equations. The error that was identified in Professor Meller's paper has been addressed. However, I must be honest about how this correction came to be. The solution was discovered by Sujin Kim, who works as a custodian at Western State University. Ms. Kim holds a PhD in differential geometry from Seoul National University and published significant research papers before leaving academia due to personal circumstances. I would like to submit this correction as a joint paper with Ms. Kim as equal author. I believe her contribution is substantial and deserves recognition. I understand this is an unusual situation. I am happy to provide any verification or explanation needed. Sincerely, Professor Minjun Park. Minjun stared at the email for a long time before hitting send. Once he did, there would be no going back. He took a deep breath and clicked the button. That afternoon, Sujin came to his office. It was 3 o'clock, still daylight. She looked nervous and out of place in her cleaning uniform, standing in a professor's office during regular work hours. Sit down, Minjun said warmly. We have work to do. For the next 4 hours, they worked together on the correction paper. Min-jun quickly realized that Soo-jin's mathematical abilities were even more impressive than he had first thought. She did not just understand his theorem. She understood it better than he did. "Here," Soo-jin said, pointing to a section of their draft. "You need to clarify this boundary condition. If someone tries to apply this theorem without understanding this limitation, they will get confused." Min-jun looked at what she was pointing to and nodded. She was right. He had been sloppy in his explanation. "What about this part?" he asked, showing her another section. "Does this make sense?" Soo-jin studied it for a moment, then shook her head. "The logic is correct, but the notation is confusing. Try this instead." She wrote out a cleaner version. They worked like this, back and forth, improving the paper sentence by sentence. Min-jun felt something he had not felt in weeks. Excitement, joy even. This was what mathematics was supposed to be. Two minds working together, making something better than either could make alone. At 7 o'clock, Soo-jin looked at the clock and stood up quickly. "I have to go. My shift starts at 11, but I need to go home first to see Hye-jin. She gets worried if I am not home for dinner." "Of course," Min-jun said. "Thank you for this, really, thank you." Soo-jin smiled, a real smile this time. "I should thank you, Professor Park. I have not done real mathematics with another person in 20 years. I forgot how good it feels." After she left, Min-jun continued working on the paper alone. He wanted it to be perfect. Around 9 o'clock, his computer dinged with a new email notification. It was from Editor Chen at the Journal of Advanced Mathematics. Min-jun's heart started beating faster as he opened it. "Dear Professor Park, thank you for your submission. I must confess your email raised many questions. A custodian with a PhD solving an advanced calculus problem is certainly unusual. Before we can consider this paper for publication, we need verification. We need to be certain that Ms. Kim truly understands this work and is not simply lending her name to your paper. I propose a video conference with myself and 2 other editors from the journal. We will ask Ms. Kim questions about the proof to verify her understanding. If she can adequately explain and defend the work, we will proceed with the review process. Please let me know if Ms. Kim is willing to participate in such a conference. Sincerely, Dr. James Chen, editor." Min-jun read the email 3 times. This was not a rejection. It was a chance. A real chance. But would Soo-jin agree to it? Being questioned by journal editors would be intimidating for anyone. For someone who had been away from academic mathematics for so long, it would be terrifying. The next night, when Soo-jin came to his office during her shift, Min-jun showed her the email. Soo-jin's face went pale as she read it. "They want to test me? Like I am a student? They want to verify that you understand the work. That is all. That is not all, Professor Park. They think I am a fraud. They think you wrote this and put my name on it for some reason. They want to prove I am lying." Min-jun could not deny that. Maybe, but is that not all the more reason to do it? To show them they are wrong? Soo-jin sat down heavily in the chair. Her hands were shaking. "I have not defended mathematics in front of experts in 25 years. What if I fail? What if my English is not good enough? What if I forget things?" "You will not forget," Min-jun said confidently. "Mathematics is still there inside your head. I have seen it. These past few days working with you, I have seen how quickly your mind works. You are faster than I am, sharper than I am. That was just us working together in private. This will be different. There will be important editors watching me, judging me, waiting for me to make a mistake." Min-jun pulled his chair closer to hers. "Soo-jin, I will be honest with you. This will be hard. They will ask you difficult questions. They will challenge your work. That is how academia works. It is not always kind. Then why should I do it? Because you have been invisible for 20 years. Because your brilliant mind has been wasted cleaning floors. Because your daughter should know that her mother is not just a janitor. She should know her mother is one of the smartest mathematicians alive." Tears filled Soo-jin's eyes. "Hye-jin already knows I used to be a mathematician. She does not care that I clean now. But do you not want more than that? Do you not want to do mathematics again? Real mathematics? Published mathematics?" Soo-jin wiped her eyes. "Every single day I want that. Every single day for 20 years. But wanting something and having it are different things." "Let me help you practice," Min-jun said. "We will prepare together. I will ask you hard questions. We will go over every part of the proof until you can explain it perfectly. And when you talk to those editors, I will be right there with you on the video call. You will not be alone. Soo-jin looked at him for a long time. Then she looked at the whiteboard, where her elegant correction was still written. The correction that had saved his career and advanced an entire field of study. Okay, she finally said. I will try. For the next 2 weeks they met every night. Soo-jin would finish her cleaning duties and then they would work. Min-jun asked her every question he could think of. He challenged every line of her reasoning. He made her explain complex concepts in simple terms and then in technical terms. He tested her on related theorems and competing approaches. Soo-jin stumbled at first. Her English failed her when she got nervous. She forgot terminology she had not used in decades. But slowly, night after night, she got stronger. Her confidence returned. The brilliant mathematician who had been sleeping inside her for 20 years began to wake up. During one of their sessions, Min-jun asked her to explain why her boundary condition worked. Soo-jin walked to the whiteboard and began writing. As she wrote, she talked, and her English became smoother. She was not translating from Korean anymore. She was thinking directly in the language of mathematics, which needs no translation. The key insight, she said, is that Professor Park's original theorem treated the function as completely continuous. But in reality, most real-world applications have discontinuities, small breaks in the pattern. His theorem failed at those breaks. She drew a diagram showing a function with a small gap in it. My correction introduces a boundary condition that handles these discontinuities. Instead of breaking down at the gaps, the theorem now includes them. It wraps around them like water flowing around a rock. Min-jun watched her in amazement. This was not just correct. This was beautiful. This was the kind of explanation that would make other mathematicians understand not just how the theorem worked, but why it mattered. That is perfect, he said. When the editors hear you explain it like that, they will have no doubt. Soo-jin turned from the whiteboard and smiled. For the first time since he had met her, she looked truly happy. You really think so? I know so. The video conference was scheduled for a Friday afternoon at 2 o'clock. Min-jun had reserved a small conference room with good internet and a large screen. He arrived early to set up the equipment. Soo-jin arrived at 1:30. She was not wearing her cleaning uniform. Instead, she wore a simple black dress and had her hair down. She looked professional. She looked like a mathematician, but she also looked terrified. I cannot do this, she said as soon as she walked in. I am going to fail. I am going to embarrass both of us. Min-jun stood up and took both of her hands in his. Look at me. You are Soo-jin Kim. You have a PhD from one of the best universities in Asia. You published groundbreaking papers in differential geometry. You spent 20 years doing mathematics in your head while the rest of the world ignored you. You are the person who saw my problem and solved it in 30 seconds. You are brilliant, and it is time the world knew it. Soo-jin took a deep breath. Then another. Okay, let us do this. At exactly 2 o'clock, the video call connected. 3 faces appeared on the screen. Editor Chen in the middle, a woman named Dr. Sarah Williams on the left, and a man named Dr. Robert Fisher on the right. All 3 were respected mathematicians with decades of experience. Good afternoon, Editor Chen said. His voice was formal and cool. Professor Park, Ms. Kim, thank you for joining us. Thank you for this opportunity, Min-jun replied. Editor Chen looked at Soo-jin. Ms. Kim, we are going to ask you some questions about the correction you submitted. We need to verify that you understand the work and contributed meaningfully to it. Do you understand? Yes, Soo-jin said quietly. Too quietly. Min-jun could hear the fear in her voice. Let us begin, Dr. Fisher said. He sounded skeptical. Can you explain in your own words what the central error was in Professor Park's original theorem? Soo-jin opened her mouth, but no words came out. Her face had gone pale. Min-jun could see her starting to panic. This was not going well. They needed to do something different. Fast. Min-jun saw the panic in Soo-jin's eyes and knew he had to do something. She was freezing up, just like she had feared. The 3 editors on the screen were watching her with expressions that ranged from curiosity to outright skepticism. May I make a suggestion? Min-jun said quickly. Ms. Kim's English is excellent, but when she is nervous, speaking becomes more difficult. Could she perhaps write her explanations on the whiteboard? Mathematics is a visual language anyway. It might be clearer for everyone. Editor Chen looked at the other 2 editors, who nodded. That seems reasonable. Ms. Kim, please feel free to use the whiteboard. Soo-jin stood up on shaky legs and walked to the whiteboard. She picked up a marker with a trembling hand. She stood there for a moment, staring at the blank white surface. Then something changed. The whiteboard was her territory. This was where mathematics lived. Not in spoken words that could get tangled up in two languages, but in pure symbols and equations that meant the same thing in any language. Sujin began to write. Her hand steadied as the first equation appeared on the board. Then another. Then another. As she wrote, she began to speak. Quietly at first, but with growing confidence. Professor Park's theorem works here, she said, circling one section of her equations. And here. For any continuous function, it is perfect. But here? She drew a small break in the function, a discontinuity. Here it fails. The theorem cannot handle this gap. She wrote more, her marker moving quickly across the board. Most textbooks ignore this problem. They say, assume the function is continuous. But in real applications, functions are almost never perfectly continuous. There are always small breaks, always gaps. So a theorem that cannot handle gaps is not complete. Dr. Fisher leaned forward on the screen. And your correction addresses this how? Sujin turned to face the camera directly. Some of her fear had melted away. Now she was doing what she loved, what she had been born to do. She was explaining mathematics. I introduce a boundary condition, she said. She wrote it on the board. This condition defines how the theorem behaves at the edges of discontinuities. It does not eliminate the gaps. It acknowledges them. It creates rules for what happens at these problem points. But how do you know this condition is sufficient? Dr. Williams asked. How do you know it covers all possible cases? For the first time, Sujin smiled. Because I have tested it, not on paper, in my head. For 2 weeks I have thought about every possible edge case, every situation where this condition might fail. I have tested it against problems in fluid dynamics, in quantum mechanics, in differential geometry. It holds. You did all of that in your head? Dr. Fisher sounded doubtful. Yes. Can you show us an example? Of course. Sujin turned back to the whiteboard. Let us take a classic problem in fluid dynamics. Water flowing around an obstacle. The flow is continuous except at the boundary of the obstacle, where there is a discontinuity. She began writing rapidly, filling the board with equations. As she worked, she explained each step. Her English was still accented, but it was clear. More importantly, her mathematics was flawless. The 3 editors watched in silence. Minjun watched too with growing amazement. He had worked with Sujin for 2 weeks, but seeing her like this, explaining complex ideas under pressure, was something else entirely. This was not someone who had been away from mathematics for 20 years. This was someone who had never left it. Not really. She had just been forced to practice it in secret, in the quiet spaces of her mind. When Sujin finished the example, she stepped back from the board. The whiteboard was covered with elegant mathematics, every line flowing naturally to the next. Does that answer your question? She asked. Dr. Williams nodded slowly. It does. That was impressive, but I have another question. This correction does more than fix the error. It extends the theorem into new territory. Was that intentional? Sujin nodded. Yes. When I saw the original theorem, I saw immediately what it could become. Professor Park had built a strong foundation. I just added another floor to the building. And you came up with this while working as a custodian? Dr. Fisher's skepticism was clear in his voice. Sujin's expression hardened. Yes, is that so difficult to believe? Does holding a mop somehow erase my PhD? Does cleaning toilets delete my publications from 20 years ago? The room went silent. Even through the video screen, Minjun could feel the tension. Sujin continued, her voice stronger now. You want to know the truth? I think about mathematics every day. Every single day for 20 years. While I mop floors, I am working on problems. While I empty trash cans, I am proving theorems. The world sees a janitor, but inside my head, I am still a mathematician. I have always been a mathematician. Dr. Fisher looked uncomfortable. I meant no offense, Ms. Kim. I'm simply trying to verify. You are trying to verify that I am not a fraud, Sujin interrupted. That I did not steal this work from someone else, or that Professor Park did not invent me as some kind of trick. I understand. In your position, I would be skeptical too, so ask me anything, test me. I am not afraid anymore. Editor Chen cleared his throat. Very well. Let us discuss your background. You said you publish papers in differential geometry. Can you tell us about your most significant work? My most cited paper was published in 1999, Sujin said. It was about manifold boundaries in non-Euclidean spaces. The paper showed that certain geometric properties remained constant, even when the underlying space was distorted in specific ways. I remember that paper, Dr. Williams said suddenly. The author was S.J. Kim from Seoul National University. That was you? Yes. Dr. Williams looked at the other editors. If this is the same person, we are not dealing with an amateur. That paper was brilliant. It influenced a lot of subsequent research. Why did you stop publishing? Editor Chen asked. Sujin's expression grew sad. Life happened. My husband died. I had debt and a small daughter. I had to make choices. Mathematics does not pay well enough when you need to survive. And you have not published anything since? Dr. Fisher asked. No, but not because I stopped thinking. I have written dozens of papers in my mind. Complete papers with proofs and examples. I just never had the opportunity to put them down on paper and submit them. The three editors looked at each other. Some silent communication passed between them. Ms. Kim, Editor Chen said finally, I am going to ask you something that might seem unfair, but we need to be certain. Dr. Fisher is going to describe a problem to you. It is related to your correction, but not identical. We want to see if you can solve it in real time. Are you willing to try? Sujin looked at Minjun. He nodded encouragingly. She turned back to the screen. Yes, I will try. Dr. Fisher described the problem. It was complex, involving differential equations in three-dimensional space with multiple discontinuities. The kind of problem that would take most mathematicians hours or days to solve, if they could solve it at all. Sujin listened carefully. Then she turned to the whiteboard and began to write. For 40 minutes she worked. Sometimes she erased and tried a different approach. Sometimes she paused to think. But she never looked confused. She never looked lost. Minjun watched the editors' faces on the screen. Their skepticism was slowly transforming into something else, surprise, then respect, then something close to awe. When Sujin finally stepped back from the whiteboard, she had filled 3 boards with mathematics. This is the solution, she said. There are actually 2 approaches you can take. I have shown both. The first is more elegant but requires stronger initial conditions. The second is more flexible but computationally intensive. Dr. Fisher stared at the screen showing the whiteboard. His mouth was slightly open. That is correct. Both solutions are correct. And you did that in 40 minutes? Yes. It took me 2 days to solve that problem when I first encountered it in my research. Maybe you were not thinking about it while mopping floors, Sujin said. There was no humor in her voice, only truth. Editor Chen sat back in his chair. Ms. Kim, I believe I owe you an apology. When I first read Professor Park's email, I thought this might be some kind of elaborate hoax or perhaps a case of a professor taking credit for work done by an assistant. I was wrong. Your understanding is genuine. Your contributions are real. Does this mean you will publish our paper? Minjun asked. It means we will send it for peer review, which is our standard process. Editor Chen replied. But I will personally recommend it to our reviewers. Ms. Kim, if you are willing, I would also like to discuss something else. Have you considered returning to academic research full-time? Sujin looked startled. I am 49 years old. I have not published in 25 years. Who would hire me? Someone who values brilliance over credentials, Editor Chen said. Someone who understands that a 25-year gap does not erase a gifted mind. I cannot make promises, but I know several institutions that might be interested. If you are interested, Sujin looked at Minjun. He smiled at her and nodded. I am interested, she said quietly. After the video call ended, Sujin sat down in the chair and put her face in her hands. Minjun thought she was crying. But when she looked up, she was laughing. I did it, she said. I actually did it. You were amazing, Minjun said. You showed them exactly who you are. I was so scared. When Dr. Fisher first asked me that question, my mind went completely blank. I thought I was going to fail. But you did not fail. You succeeded. You more than succeeded. Sujin stood up and walked to the whiteboard. She looked at all the equations she had written during the call. Do you know what the best part was? She asked. What? For 90 minutes, I was not a janitor. I was not someone who had failed or given up or disappeared. I was just a mathematician doing mathematics. And it felt like coming home. Minjun felt tears in his own eyes. Then let us make sure you get to stay home. We have work to do. Papers to write, research to conduct, and a career to rebuild. What if the journal rejects our paper? Soo-jin asked. What if this was all for nothing? It was not for nothing. 3 respected editors just saw what you can do. Even if this paper is rejected, which I do not think it will be, you have proven something important. You have proven that you still belong in mathematics. Soo-jin nodded. What happens now? Now we wait for the peer review process. It usually takes a few weeks. In the meantime, we work on the next paper. The next paper? Min-jun smiled. You said you have dozens of papers written in your mind. Let us start getting them down on actual paper. You have 25 years of thinking to share with the world. We should not waste any more time. Soo-jin looked at him and he saw something in her eyes that had not been there before. Hope. Real, genuine hope. Thank you, Professor Park, for believing in me, for fighting for me, for not letting me stay invisible. Call me Min-jun, he said. We are colleagues now, partners, and colleagues do not let each other disappear. That night, Soo-jin did not go to her cleaning job. She called her supervisor and said she needed a personal day. Instead, she stayed in Min-jun's office and they began writing. Not a correction this time. A full research paper, original work, the first of many that would come. Somewhere in the building, Soo-jin's cleaning cart sat abandoned in a hallway. She would not need it much longer. 3 weeks after the video conference, Min-jun received an email from the Journal of Advanced Mathematics. He was in his office grading papers from his undergraduate calculus class when the notification appeared on his screen. His heart jumped when he saw the sender's name. He called Soo-jin immediately. She was at home working on another research paper. Since the video conference, she had reduced her cleaning shifts to part-time. She needed time to write, to think, to be a mathematician again. They responded, Min-jun said as soon as she answered. The journal. They sent their decision, and? Soo-jin's voice was tense with anticipation. I have not opened it yet. I wanted us to read it together. Can you come to campus? I will be there in 20 minutes. Min-jun waited, staring at the unopened email. These 3 weeks had been extraordinary. He and Soo-jin had written 2 complete papers together. They had sketched outlines for 5 more. The mathematics department had started to notice that Professor Park was working with someone new, though few people knew the full story yet. When Soo-jin arrived, slightly out of breath from rushing, they sat together in front of his computer. Min-jun's hand hovered over the mouse. Ready? He asked. Soo-jin nodded. Open it. Min-jun clicked. They read the email in silence. Then they read it again. Then Soo-jin started crying, and Min-jun realized he was crying too. The paper was accepted. Not just accepted, but accepted with enthusiastic praise from all 3 peer reviewers. One reviewer had written, "This is the most elegant solution to this class of problems I have seen in my 30 years in mathematics. The boundary condition introduced by Kim is both simple and profound. This work will influence the field for years to come." Another reviewer had written, "While the backstory of the second author is unusual, the mathematics speaks for itself. This is brilliant work regardless of who wrote it or where they work." We did it, Soo-jin whispered. It is really going to be published. You did it, Min-jun corrected. I just had the problem. You had the solution. The paper was published 6 weeks later. The response from the mathematics community was immediate and intense. Some people were skeptical about the janitor story, thinking it was exaggerated or made up for publicity. But most people focused on the mathematics itself, which was undeniable. Within days, the story spread beyond academic circles. A science journalist from a major newspaper wrote an article titled, "The Janitor Who Solved the Unsolvable." The article went viral. Television news programs picked it up. Social media exploded with discussions about hidden genius and wasted talent. Suddenly, Soo-jin Kim was famous. She hated it. I do not want to be the janitor mathematician, she told Min-jun one evening. They were in his office trying to work on their next paper, but Soo-jin kept getting interrupted by interview requests. I want to just be a mathematician. Why does everyone care about where I worked? Why is that more interesting than the actual mathematics? Because it is a good story, Min-jun said. People love stories about hidden talent being discovered, about someone overcoming obstacles. But I am not a story. I am a person, a mathematician. And all this attention is making it hard to do actual work. Min-jun understood her frustration. But he also knew that the attention, annoying as it was opening doors. 3 universities had already contacted Soo-jin about research positions. 2 research institutes had invited her to apply for fellowships. Even Western State University, embarrassed by the fact that they had employed a brilliant mathematician as a janitor for 3 years without noticing, was scrambling to offer her something. Dr. Robertson, the department chair, had called Min-jun into his office 2 weeks after the paper was published. "We need to fix this situation," Dr. Robertson had said. He looked uncomfortable, like a man who knew he had made a mistake and was trying to figure out how to make it right. "We cannot have someone of Ms. Kim's caliber cleaning our floors. It makes us look terrible. It makes us look blind." "You were blind," Min-jun had said simply. "We all were. She was right there and we never saw her. Well, we see her now. What would it take to bring her on as research faculty? She does not have recent publications. She has been out of academia for 25 years. Those are your department's rules, are they not? No recent publications means no consideration for faculty positions." Dr. Robertson had winced. "Rules can be flexible when the situation calls for it. Ms. Kim is clearly an exceptional case. Or maybe your rules are wrong," Min-jun had suggested. "Maybe they exclude people who could contribute greatly to mathematics just because they do not fit into the standard career path." Now, sitting in his office with Soo-jin, Min-jun told her about the conversation. "What do you think?" he asked. "Would you want to work here, as research faculty?" Soo-jin was quiet for a moment. "I do not know. Part of me wants to say yes immediately. This is where I started to do mathematics again. This place feels special because of that, but another part of me wonders if I should go somewhere else, somewhere that did not overlook me for 3 years." "That is fair," Min-jun said. "You have options now. You should choose the one that is best for you." Over the next month, Soo-jin visited several universities. She gave talks about her work. She met with potential colleagues. She listened to offers and promises, but the process was not easy. Despite her newfound fame, despite the brilliant paper she had just published, Soo-jin faced unexpected resistance. Some older professors were skeptical of her long absence from academia. Some thought the media attention meant she was more celebrity than scholar. Some simply could not get past the fact that she had been a janitor. "They keep asking me about the gap," Soo-jin told Min-jun after a particularly difficult visit to a prestigious university, 25 years of no publications. "They say it is too long. They say the field has changed too much. One professor actually said to my face that I am too old to start a research career now." Min-jun felt anger burn in his chest. "You just published a groundbreaking paper. You solved problems in front of journal editors that took them days to solve. How can they say you are not current?" "Because credentials matter more than ability in academia," Soo-jin said bitterly. "Because the system is designed for people who never stopped, never took a break, never had to choose between mathematics and survival. People like me do not fit into the boxes they have created." "Then we will break the boxes," Min-jun said firmly. He started making calls. He contacted every mathematician he knew, everyone who had ever cited his work or collaborated with him. He told them about Soo-jin, not the janitor story, but the mathematician, her insights, her abilities, her potential. One of those calls reached Dr. Patricia Wu, the dean of the graduate school at Western State University. Dr. Wu was a physicist who had faced her own struggles early in her career as an Asian woman in a male-dominated field. She understood what it meant to be overlooked. Dr. Wu called Min-jun to her office. "Tell me about Soo-jin Kim," she said. "Not the media story. The real person." Min-jun told her everything. About Soo-jin's papers in the 1990s. About her working mathematics in her head for 20 years. About the brilliant correction she had made. About the papers they were writing together now. "She is the smartest mathematician I have ever worked with," Min-jun said. "And I am not saying that because of the media attention. I am saying it because I have spent hundreds of hours working with her. Her mind works differently than other people's. She sees connections others miss. She understands problems intuitively that take others weeks to understand analytically." Dr. Wu nodded slowly. "The department has offered her a research faculty position. But I understand she is hesitant. What would it take to convince her?" "Respect," Min-jun said simply. "Not pity, not charity because we feel bad about employing her as a janitor. Actual respect for what she can contribute, and freedom to work without constantly having to prove she deserves to be here." "I can guarantee the respect," Dr. Wu said. The freedom part, that will depend on her. The media attention will fade eventually. But while it lasts, she will have to deal with people who are more interested in her story than her work. She knows that. She hates it, but she knows it. Dr. Wu smiled. Good, because I want to make her an offer she cannot refuse. Not just research faculty. I want to create a new position for her. Senior research fellow with a guaranteed 5-year appointment. No teaching requirements unless she wants to teach. A research budget and office. And most importantly, time. Time to write all those papers she has been thinking about for 20 years. Minjun felt hope surge in his chest. She would accept that. I know she would. There is one condition, Dr. Wu said. I want her to mentor graduate students. Not formal advising, but informal mentorship. I want students to see that there is not just one path to mathematics. That taking a break does not mean your career is over. That brilliance can survive even when circumstances try to bury it. She would be perfect for that. The offer was made. Sujin accepted. The official announcement came 6 months after that night when Sujin had first written her correction on Minjun's whiteboard. Western State University held a small ceremony to welcome Dr. Sujin Kim as Senior Research Fellow in the Department of Mathematics. Sujin's daughter, Hye-jin, attended the ceremony. She sat in the front row, wearing her medical school white coat, crying proud tears as her mother was introduced. Dr. Wu gave a speech about the importance of recognizing talent wherever it is found. Dr. Robertson gave a speech about the department's commitment to diversity and inclusion, which made Sujin roll her eyes when she thought no one was looking. Minjun gave a speech about how working with Sujin had reminded him why he loved mathematics in the first place. Then it was Sujin's turn to speak. She walked to the podium slowly. She looked out at the audience. There were professors, students, staff members. Some of them were people who had walked past her for 3 years while she cleaned their offices and never once looked at her face. Thank you for this honor, Sujin began. Her voice was quiet but steady. Many of you know my story now. The janitor who solved a math problem, the hidden genius, the feel-good story. But I want to tell you something that the media articles do not talk about. She paused. I am not unique. There are thousands, maybe millions of people like me. People with brilliant minds who are working jobs that do not use their talents. People who had to choose between their dreams and survival. People who took breaks from their careers and then could not find their way back. The system we have built in academia only rewards people who follow one very specific path. Get your degree young. Publish constantly. Never stop. Never take a break. Never have a family emergency or a financial crisis or a sick parent. Just keep publishing, keep climbing, keep performing. But that is not reality for most people. Reality is messy. Reality is complicated. Reality is being forced to choose between mathematics and feeding your child. And when people make the practical choice, the survival choice, we punish them. We say they are not serious scholars. We say they are too old, too outdated, too far removed from current work. Sujin's voice grew stronger. I am standing here today not because the system worked. I am here because one person, Professor Park, saw past the system. He saw past my job title and my resume gap and my age. He saw the mathematics. That is all he saw, and that is what saved me. How many others have we not saved? How many brilliant minds are we wasting because they do not fit into our narrow definition of what a scholar looks like? The room was completely silent. I hope my story does more than make people feel good. I hope it makes people think. Think about who we are overlooking, who we are excluding, who we are failing to see because we are too focused on credentials and career paths and the way things have always been done. Sujin looked directly at Minjun. Thank you, Professor Park, for seeing me. And thank you to Western State University for this opportunity to prove that second chances matter, that gaps in a resume do not erase knowledge, that talent does not expire. I have spent 20 years thinking about mathematics in secret. Now I get to do it in public. I get to publish papers. I get to work with students. I get to do what I was meant to do. It is a privilege, one that I will never take for granted. The audience stood and applauded. Even the professors who had been skeptical, who had voted against her appointment, stood and clapped. After the ceremony, there was a small reception. People came up to congratulate Sujin. Some of them were sincere. Others seemed uncomfortable, as if they were not sure what to say to someone who had been cleaning their office just months ago. Hye-jin approached her mother with tears streaming down her face. They hugged for a long time without speaking. I am so proud of you, Emma. Haijin finally said. So incredibly proud. I am proud of you too, Sujin replied. You are going to be an amazing doctor. Better than I ever was as a mathematician. That is not true. You are brilliant. You always were. I'm just glad the world finally knows it. Later that evening, after everyone had left, Minjun and Sujin walked through the empty mathematics building. They stopped outside Sujin's new office. Her name was on the door, Dr. Sujin Kim, Senior Research Fellow. How does it feel? Minjun asked. Sujin stared at the nameplate for a long time before answering. Surreal. Like a dream I might wake up from. It is real. You earned this. I earned it 25 years ago, Sujin said. But I lost it. And now I have it back. Not because the system worked, but because one person was kind enough to see past the uniform and the job title. You would have found your way back eventually, Minjun said. Someone else would have noticed. Sujin shook her head. Maybe. Or maybe I would have spent the rest of my life cleaning floors and doing mathematics only in my head. We will never know. What matters is that you did notice. You did help. You refused to let me stay invisible. She unlocked her office door and turned on the light. The room was small, but it had a window, a desk, a computer, and most importantly, a large whiteboard. Sujin walked to the whiteboard and picked up a marker. She wrote an equation, then another. Then she stepped back and looked at them. This feels like home, she said quietly. Minjun smiled. Good, because you have a lot of work to do. 25 years worth of papers to write, remember? I remember. And I cannot wait to start. They stood there together looking at the equations on the whiteboard. Two mathematicians. Two colleagues. Two people who had reminded each other that genius can be found anywhere, in anyone if we only bother to look. Outside in the hallway, a janitor pushed a cleaning cart past Sujin's door. The janitor was a young man new to the job. He glanced through the open door and saw the professors at the whiteboard surrounded by equations. He kept walking. He did not know that the woman in that office had once pushed the same cart he was pushing now. He did not know her story. But someday maybe someone would tell him. And maybe, just maybe, he would remember it if he ever met someone who seemed out of place in their job. Someone who seemed like they were meant for something more. Because the lesson of Sujin Kim was not just about one brilliant mathematician reclaiming her career. It was about paying attention. About looking at people. Really looking at them and seeing what they could be instead of just what they are. It was about never giving up on people. Never assuming someone's potential based on their job title. Never thinking it is too late for a second chance. And most of all, it was about remembering that genius does not wear a uniform. It does not follow a schedule. It does not care about resume gaps or age or credentials. Genius is just genius, and it deserves to be recognized wherever it is found. Even if you find it pushing a cleaning cart down a university hallway at 2 in the morning.